Welcome back to Fox 43 AM Live. Join us now is Dr. Leslie Weaver, Livestock Services Veterinarian at the Veterinary Health Center. Good morning.
Good morning.
Always a pleasure to have you guys on the show. And so to start out, what is a livestock veterinarian? What do you do?
Yeah, so at the Veterinary Health Center, I work on a lot of our farm animal species, so cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, and I'm a little bit unique in the fact that I not only work inside of the clinic, but I also go out into the field, so I make farm calls. So I get to do kind of the best of both worlds, staying in the clinic, especially when the weather is kind of not as desirable, and but I also get to go out on the farm and work with ranchers at their home place and get to see a bunch of different operations. Of course, being a teaching hospital, we also take students out with us, which makes things even more interesting. Students are always the most enthusiastic people that you can have with you, so I really enjoy that.
That's lovely. And so yeah, what attracts you to this type of work? Like obviously a farm veterinarian, if you will, as opposed to maybe just a pet veterinarian.
Yeah, so I grew up in the agricultural industry. My dad's a grain farmer, and so I have a real passion for agriculture and have kind of been able to weld that with my passion for veterinary medicine by serving farmers and ranchers in the community of agriculture as a whole and wanting to bridge that gap between agriculture and urban people. And so a veterinarian is uniquely placed to do that. And then being in a teaching hospital, I think what really draws me to teaching is the students. So like I say, they're very enthusiastic. Yeah. They have a lot of zeal for veterinary medicine, and we get all types of students, so even ones that never thought that they'd see a cow before, they end up coming through our rotation and they just love it.
That's wonderful. And how long have you been doing this?
So I have been a veterinarian since 2015, and I've been up here at K-State since 2019. So
all right, so you got a few years under your belt then. That's wonderful.
Yeah, not as fresh as I used to be. So.
And what kind of health issues are you kind of keeping an eye on during the winter now?
Yeah, so nobody watches the weather quite as closely as farmers and ranchers, and I'm sure they're all watching Fox 43 right now for the most accurate weather. But we know that this next coming week there's going to be several days where it doesn't get above freezing, and one of my concerns for my own animals as well as my clients' animals are ensuring that they have optimal water, water access and water intake.
That's interesting. So do you have any suggestions for people to kind of ensure animals have access to water during the winter then?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because different species drink water a little differently. So for our cattle clients, it's okay to go chop ice or refill a water tank once a day. And they can tank up on water once a day, and that will usually get them through, as long as they don't have a calf at their side and are needing to make milk. Yeah. For other species like horses and goats, pigs, they like to take small drinks more frequently throughout the day, and so for those clients I usually recommend that they get an electric de-icer. You can plug it in, you have to run an extension cord down to your water, or you have to be close enough that you can run an extension cord down to your water, and it sits in the tank and it just warms it enough so that the ice can't form. And then that way horses and goats, they can take as many drinks as they would like throughout the day. They don't have to worry about chopping ice several times throughout the day. And then goats actually prefer warm water, and so if you have pet goats or if you have just a small herd of goats, it's oftentimes helpful to take them warmer water several times throughout the day. You'll find that they drink a lot more than just the de-iced, which is just barely warm enough to not be icy water.
Well, wow, yeah, that's a lot to remember for you with different animals and different tastes of water. That's I'm impressed. I'm jealous that you come to know all that. And so I'm also curious, like, I guess, what are the dangers of animals not having that access then?
Yeah. And for my cattle clients, oftentimes when they don't drink enough water, they don't eat enough hay. So without having that water, they can't digest enough of their dry matter intake, like hay. And that's really how cattle warm themselves in the cold, is by intaking hay and breaking that down in their rumen, and that produces heat. So digestion produces heat, and that keeps them warm in the winter months. So if they don't get enough water, they don't drink enough hay, and then they have a problem maintaining their thermal regulation during the winter season. For goats, I am very concerned about a lack of water intake, goats and pigs actually, concentrating their urine to where it makes it easier for them to make stones. So urinary stones are a big problem in pet goats and pet pigs, and urine concentration plays a lot into that. And when they make those stones, sometimes they can sneak into the urethra and they cause havoc by not allowing them to urinate.
Yeah.
So I worry about blocked goats and blocked pigs. Horses, there's a higher incidence of colic whenever they don't drink enough water. So colic is just anything that causes belly pain. And what happens is, again, there's not enough moisture in the GI tract. Their hay and their feed, it kind of becomes more dense, and it can actually cause a blockage in the GI tract, and that makes them extremely painful and sick. When animals go without water for a long period of time, and then they engorge themselves on water when they're finally offered fresh water, we see something called salt toxicity. And that is because as they're deprived of water, and it takes usually a couple of days without water, so if for some reason your de-icer stopped working and you didn't know because you didn't check it, a couple days ago, and they didn't have access to water, their body adapts to that not having water, and they increase the amount of salt in their blood so that they can kind of maintain the balance of water between the inside of the cells and the outside of the cells. If you give them free access to water, they'll engorge themselves, and the body can't compensate. So some of those cells will swell, and they'll get brain swelling, and so they'll show neurologic signs. So if you have that happen where something went wrong and maybe your cattle or your goats or your pig didn't have access to water, you want to slowly reintroduce them to water so that you can avoid that salt toxicity.
That is so amazing. I'm over here just thinking, oh, they'll probably just be dehydrated, but there's so much more. I'm so glad that there are people like you that can help keep us informed and keep our animals safe and healthy every year. Thank you so much, Dr. Weaver. This has been so much of a pleasure. I feel like I've learned so much in the past couple of minutes.
Thank you for having me on the show. It was a great time.
Of course. And to learn more, you can go to ksvhc.org.